Okay, welcome to another episode of Dees Talk. Today my guests are Oli Kidd, who's a producer, and Sean Mackey, who's a DOP. We're going to speak a bit about the current state of the film industry and the challenges that these guys are currently facing. Yes. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Finally, we've made it onto the
Yeah,
At long last.
Yeah, they've made it on. Yeah, so Oli helped me start the podcast a few episodes back, and Sean's been working with me too. So I thought we've been having a few interesting conversations in between sets, and I thought this could be a podcast. So, so I thought let's get you guys on, and we can have a little chat about the big changes that are currently happening in the film industry with the streaming giants and AI. So. And also some interesting facts about the financing that I think most people wouldn't know, which is quite interesting, and how that's being changed, you know? So would you like to start, Oli? Kick us off a bit?
Sure, fine, why not? Well, I think, what we were discussing 20, 30 minutes ago was what kind of made us decide to come in here and speak about it.
Yeah.
And that is that the industry has changed, is changing at a rate that I don't think has ever been before, in the sense that things are moving at a pace that really I think people from the top and the bottom are confused about. And Sean and I were talking a lot about this kind of idea of when there's confusion, there is opportunity.
Yeah.
And a lot of that confusion, yes, has come from what you said, streaming, and I think that was kind of what started the kind of eruption of what is currently happening. But also you now have other elements like AI. We had the strikes, we had COVID, we had all the past 5 years, really so much has happened, so that we're in a situation now where the industry is sort of in this state of unknown.
Which, I mean, for me, as an outsider, I would think it's almost quite an exciting time, because I would have assumed that having all these streaming giants coming in would be pumping all this new money in. AI would be an exciting thing that could open new channels of creativity for filmmakers. Obviously, it's a change from the traditional, or like it could be overlaid or bolted on. But is that not what's happening? Is all this extra money coming into streaming not, funding more and more content and movies and TV shows?
I'm going to let Sean answer this, but the one thing I'll say before is that really I think what started kind of the eruption of chaos in the industry was streaming. Like I was saying, a complicated story simplified is that the model used to work. The business model for film used to work. You would make a movie, you'd have a theatrical release, you would then go buy a ticket. That ticket would then be split between the cinemas and the production companies. You would then have a DVD sale as well. So you kind of had two avenues of revenue. And that would really enable a lot of production companies to be able to stay afloat and really be able to continue doing what they were doing. Now, when streaming came into play, I don't think anyone really knew what to do, or people who did weren't listened to, because what happened was we created a platform that enabled viewership to go up, but the cost of making a film, it wasn't like it magically went down. So viewership went up, so we had to continuously make content. But with that, the overall sort of idea of making a film didn't change. So viewership went up, and the cost of making a movie stayed the same. And with that, we had to make more movies. And when that happened, more films had to be made, but we didn't have theatrical releases. We didn't have DVD sales anymore, because everything was being put onto this platform.
But wasn't the increased viewership multiplied by the cost of subscription like higher than or equal to the total revenue from theatrical releases? Or no?
Because the model was different. So the model for streaming is you pay $7.99 a month and you can watch as much as you want. It used to be that when you would go to the cinema, you would pay £10 and you could watch it once. Then, as Sean said, you could go again and pay £20, right?
Yeah.
So, but that business model worked. And then with streaming, it basically means that platforms are fighting against having as much content as possible. We're trying to make as much as possible, but we're not able to, fund or pay anyone as much because that real core area of revenue is gone from theatrical and DVD sales. Now, AI is a whole nother kind of issue that's arisen in the industry, and I think really if anyone's going to speak about that, it's going to be Sean.
I'll hold my hands up. I'm not a lover of AI.
Right.
No.
I mean, I do think that the process being one that's so iterative is something that doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with art. I take the point that everyone has their references and they pull their input from somewhere, but I think when you're creating art, at least for me, I certainly try not to be too reliant on my references. No. They might be a jumping off point, but they're not something that I'm looking to emulate exactly. And I actually think a lot of the art that I've seen, even before the kind of recent surge of AI, has been a little too iterative and a little too connected to its original source material. My fear with this stuff is that in terms of the actual content that's eventually made, be it on Netflix, on Amazon, whatever it might be, is that is only iterative. So it's almost like you have to watch all of these references from a long time ago in order to actually decode what you're watching. And at some stage, those references run out. If we don't make new films with new ideas and new ways of exploring things, then we don't have anything to riff on in 20 or 30 years when we run out of those ideas as well. So it's a kind of, I feel like AI represents a lot of what was already happening in terms of an industry that is cannibalizing itself. And really, when you look at things that people still see and want to talk about and have that inspire conversations, it is stuff that feels new, stuff that feels relevant and doesn't actually steep itself too hard in reference.
I mean, I guess with AI, everyone says it like it's one thing, but actually AI is lots of things, right? There's lots of tools that can, all different parts of the filmmaking process or other parts of business processes can be affected by AI, right? So there'll be some things where it can help streamline workflows or improve or, help quite a lot in terms of the efficiency and maybe bring the cost down of production. And maybe you are cutting some jobs along the way. But it seems like there's many different aspects of AI which can affect many different aspects of, frankly, pretty much most businesses right now. And if you're not going to integrate them, you won't be operating as efficiently and you might be falling behind. So are you saying you're not a fan of AI, but would you not use anything?
I think I'm a purist, ultimately. Right. I think that cinema and art in general builds inefficiency in. There is part of the filmmaking industry that needs to be made more efficient. I respect that. I think anyone working in production does. But ultimately, the art itself isn't a kind of, it isn't something that's based purely on profit. It's based on, making someone feel a certain way or exploring something in a new way. And so it kind of runs at odds with the whole kind of use case of AI in terms of it being about efficiency. I won't disagree. Of course, there's ways that it will make some people's process more efficient. I think where it feels most frustrating to me is that when you receive a pitch deck for a job and 90% of those images are made in AI and you're like, well, I'm not going to make it with AI. I'm going to take a camera and some lights and try and...
And do you think it's pretty obvious when you see that?
I think so.
Because all the telltale signs are still there.
And I think part of it is you feel that subconsciously as an audience. I was saying earlier, I made a stop motion film last year and we, toiled over it for 9 months and we were really keen not to use AI to augment anything, not to even use any VFX. When we moved the camera, we moved it on like a hand crank slider. And all of that inefficiency and impurity kind of lives in that film. And I think when people watched it, a large part of what they were responding to is subconsciously feeling like they watched something that was made artisanally, made by hand.
Right.
I think, I'm very much on Sean's side when it comes to the argument of AI, but I also from a producer standpoint, understand your argument that it's something that we can't ignore.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, you look at the 90s, we were talking about when film moved from film to digital, and
Yeah.
a lot of people were arguing
Resisted.
against that. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that was nearly as drastic as AI is going to be for the film industry, as it is going to be for the world and every business and humanity as a whole. Now, it's interesting when you look at film, because I do think, yes, there are going to be ways that AI is implemented that is going to just help overall, and it's going to minimize cost in certain areas that will enable people to focus more on the more creative side of things. So actually, I think, if anything, it should be used as a tool to improve creativity from a creative standpoint. However, in reality, is that going to be the case? I don't know. You've got these companies like Netflix and Hulu and Disney who are definitely looking at it. There's no way they're not. Now, are they going to pull a trigger and suddenly say, well, we've done some tests and 80% of the audiences don't care, so, you know, revenue-wise, are we just going to do AI and then have a little niche section of human-made content? Maybe. Maybe that's going to be a situation. But I do think this is an important point to make about AI currently, and a mentor of mine said this to me a couple months ago, and it's that, can AI, and it's a question, I guess, can AI create a Kevin Hart, right? And I sort of thought about that, because, you know, he's a multi-billion-dollar actor, right? All his films have grossed billions of dollars. But you look at him and you think, you know, 5'3" comedian, you know, he doesn't make sense in terms of what AI would look at, right? For AI, you look at The Rock, who's like attractive and 6'6" and an action film. So
when Kevin Hart hears this, he's going to be like,
but it's a compliment to him, because really it's like
his talent
went against the mold, and he was able to succeed on a massive scale. Now, would AI be able to come up with that? I don't think so. Would AI be able to come up with The Rock, and then we ask AI to be funny, so they basically try and create Kevin Hart, but just make The Rock 5'3" and, you know, change little features like that? You know, that's an argument there. Is it going to be able to create these kind of, you know, random creatives who just are incredible and make things that we can't understand, and nor should we, because I think that's sort of the beauty of the creative side of the industry. And of course, for me, I'm always thinking of the business side as well, and having to look at both sides. But yeah, I think AI will be a tool and is a tool currently and will continue to be. But I do think that, I could be wrong, but I just don't see a world in which AI can create some of the films we've seen in the past 20 years. It's so connected to human experience, you know?
No, absolutely. I think, you know, I think there will be movies entirely made with AI, and maybe, like, as we were speaking about earlier, maybe that becomes a genre, like 100% AI made movies. And then there's perhaps like AI infused, but with the human soul actor underneath it, you know, much like they do with the Avatar type stuff. That's very much fused, but they kept the human soul, but they enhanced it and made scenes you wouldn't even be able to create traditionally, because it's all special effects. So there is already like special effects and stuff happening, overlaid the sort of human performances, you know what I mean? So, and if you're thinking creatively, in a creative industry, you can be creative with AI, right? So that becomes a new way to be creative. And how do you mix that with, you know, a powerful script that was human made? You know, we were saying earlier, somebody who just has written an amazing story, but, you know, doesn't have the contacts or the ability to get some guy to finance it or network and whatever, kiss the right ring or whatever, you know, the traditional movie, those sort of gatekeepers and all that is gone, and they're able to suddenly just type and put some time and energy in and get creative at home and create something. I think in that way it kind of democratizes it in some way, much like the birth of YouTube created this whole new creative industry of like influencers or people that could, like, make their own content on their phone or whatever. That wasn't even a possibility 25 years ago or something. But it's created a new genre in which you can still be creative. So it's not just like I'm handing the reins, which some people might do. They might say, AI get me the movie idea, AI get me the movie script, AI do this, AI, work out all the camera shots for every single thing. You could, and maybe that could be, like I would say, a genre of someone's done 100% AI movies, and maybe they should have some labels on the movies of like how much or
Well, that's the thing that
contributed.
Ashton Kutcher was talking about, I think, on a podcast, was that the rate at which AI is moving, we're going to be in a situation where you're, typical Friday night, you're with your partner or your friends, and you're trying to figure out what to watch, and it's going to take 10 to 15 to 20 minutes on like arguing and deciding whatever. And so he was saying that actually AI is going to be in a space where you're going to be able to write exactly what you want. So I want to watch a comedy with a bit of satire, and I want this actor and this actor, and it will render that film in 10 minutes. So this idea of choosing is going to be gone. But that's exactly the point that I think is terrifying, right? Because, you were saying how, yes, it could be used to enable filmmakers to, make a film based on a script, and you just put the script in AI and it makes you the film. But I think actually filmmaking it sounds whatever, but it's so much more than that. It's not just the script and then boom. And I think it's really, you start with a script, and I'm not going to go through it, but there are so many processes just getting that script into principle, into shooting the film.
Yeah.
And then once you've shot the film, there are so many other elements in post-production, and there are so many elements while you're shooting the film. So if you're going to take all of that out, I don't think it's filmmaking. And I think it's sort of like an artist going, I've got an idea for a portrait. Okay, it's gonna have this and some flowers, and it's gonna have a couple kissing and whatever, and you write that down and AI paints it for you. Right? Is that still art? I mean, that's the question. People might agree that it is, but I think that really there is a dangerous line we're crossing between this, and I think Sean actually is in the best position to discuss it because what you do is really at core, you're the man behind the camera. You're the man who's working with the director and the writer from the start, and really trying to you're the person who's taking that script and bringing their vision to life. So in theory, what we're talking about is taking your role away.
I think a large part of it, I see, to use your analogy of like someone puts in a prompt of I want to make a photograph or make a painting of this fruit bowl with this going on. Yeah. In the middle of painting that painting, you change your idea. Like your brushstrokes become broader. You use more red, use more green. And sure, you can you can go into the prompt and change things around. But I actually think the process of creating art itself is kind of the process of like continually changing that prompt and having that happen live.
But doesn't that happen with I'm just thinking of Midjourney as one example, right? And I'm sure other AI tools do something similar. You put in a prompt, you get some options. So AI will be like, okay, here's 4 images. Now choose from these. So then there's still a human choosing which one affected them most.
Right.
And then it goes down. So you are you can sort of generate and then filter with a human, generate, filter with a human. So there's like a feedback loop happening. And that's just one example of Midjourney. But I'm sure, if the human in that process is a true creative with taste or knows what he wants, there will still be the final result better than somebody that doesn't have taste and is just choosing,
I think part of that is actually though that certainly in the process of making a film, it's not just one person. Like there's auteur theory which suggests that everything stems from the director, and part of that might be true, and it's good to have someone with that kind of creative clarity of vision. But so much of that process of a director turning something from script to screen goes through 7 or 8 other really big key voices that have really different taste, really different points of view, different lifestyles, different experiences, that they respond to such random things in a script.
So that adds richness to the whole thing, whereas if it was one solo guy trying to realize his vision.
I don't think that I mean, you can go back and look at these great directors who, you know, Boy Genius, Orson Welles, etc. Orson Welles happened to work with one of the best cinematographers that has ever lived and will ever live on the first film he made. It's not by chance that film looks incredible and works in the way it does. And that's not to remove the work of like the phenomenal production designer and everyone else. Sure. And so I think that process of creating the art is still, you know, 10 or 12 reels far away from having true depth, because that depth comes from the experience of actually living a life and bringing something to the table.
And I think what you just said, you know, paying respect to everyone involved in making any movie. It's, you know, my job really is trying to get as many people together who are good at what they do without wanting to kill each other, but also being able to kind of have this end product that people can relate to or can feel some type of emotion. I think I went to a panel when I was like 15, 16, and it was about kind of the way cinema is changing at that time. And so, you know, you're looking like 10 years ago. And I remember someone said, and this was before Trump, this was before, you know, COVID, but someone said, I watch films to escape my reality.
Sure.
Right? And I think when I heard that, I really sort of thought about it a lot, because it's so true. You know, when you sit down by yourself or with whoever, and you watch a movie and you really watch it, you know, during those 2 hours, you're escaping your reality and you're going into the reality of these filmmakers, that's what they've created. And so I just feel, and again, look, the two of us are going to have our own views on this because we work in the industry and have committed ourselves to it. Yeah. So it's kind of, it would be a bit
blood pact.
Kind of be like, oh no,
I won't use AI if you won't use AI.
I'm going to put it on my Instagram, made without AI.
Exactly. But it will have shirts. But that's true. And so I think it's kind of like, you just think about the process. And again, look, people don't know this because most people who watch a movie just turn it on and go, oh wow, look, it's great. And they don't realize what goes into making that film and every little process. And even when you came on set for one of our films and you were asking the question, do you need all these people? You know, you do. Right. And a film that works really well is when every single person, from your production assistant runner to your HOD director, everyone has a purpose. And look, if they don't, then they'll be realizing they won't be doing that anymore. Yeah. But so that's the thing. It really is like, it's so many art forms put together. And I think having friends and partners who are like artists and musicians, and it's interesting because you speak to them and you see in film how so much overlaps.
Yeah, there's so much collaboration.
It's just so much collaboration. And it really is just, I just feel it's such a human experience. And that script that, I mean, we're working on a film together that we're shooting in a couple of weeks. and because that's the other thing with film, you know, you never actually know if it's going to be made until maybe a week before.
Really? There's that much uncertainty?
Yeah, I mean, especially in the current climate, finances can pull out if they want to, you know. So, but yeah, so you know, we're making a film together, and it's so interesting because even the first film we made together to this one, you can just see the differences in the way we're approaching it, and we're using, you know, similar methods but different styles or different approaches, and that's how it is for each film. Each film is different, and like we were saying, you're only as good as your last project. And so I think if you have AI, it just takes all of that away. And I can't understand why someone would want to go and watch a movie that was created by, you know, the internet, by a platform, by something we don't understand. Because if it's being created by something we don't understand, how are we going to understand truly what they're trying to convey in it? And it can go for the typical love tropes and scary tropes and all of that bullshit, to be honest. But I just think this idea that AI is going to, like, you know, replace filmmaking it's terrifying, because it might. But if it does, I think we're in a dangerous, we're really in dangerous territory.
I don't think it will replace. I think, like, for instance, Sean's a DOP. He knows about, you know, shots, how to set them up, how to light them and stuff. And that knowledge he could put into AI. Like, some complete amateur comes along is not going to make with AI the same shots Sean is, because Sean's going to know from the real world experience of lighting, of like what camera, what lens to even put into AI, use this lens, use that, because that is stuff you can actually tell AI, use a kind of this camera from this angle. So whatever knowledge you have might be enhanced, just playing devil's advocate here. You know, I think a lot of real world knowledge will help, like, because I think about it in terms of, you know, I make spreadsheets sometimes, and sometimes I get AI ChatGPT to come up with something, and then that can be a part of my process. But then I know how to use Excel. I know how to like take that, put it into Excel, do more stuff with it, put it back to AI. Like, my knowledge still interacts with AI, you know, and I don't think it's just as easy as anyone's going to be able to do it. And that could be the case for all those people in the credits could be AI enhanced or something, you know.
I think part of it is, though, that you also have the literacy of having learned how to use Microsoft Excel at some point in your life, right? So you've never had that convenience of AI to just
just do it, which kids these days would do. Yeah,
exactly. So part of it is that the only reason I know, well, I think I know where to put the camera and what lens to be on is that ultimately I've built that up through years of building my taste and getting it wrong.
Trial and error,
Yeah, like really getting it wrong. And also, I might think it's a 50 mil from here, and the director might look over my shoulder and go, no, it's a 75. Yeah. And that has to be an interaction between us. Midjourney's not going to go, are you sure you want to do that?
Well, that's the other thing, right? You know, for me, when I'm hiring 20, or you're talking about the credits, you know, 20, 30, 40 people for this film, from a producer's viewpoint, really, you know, if you're thinking about playing true devil's advocate, why would I need to hire those people if I'm going down that AI route, right? Why would I need to? I could ask AI, what do you think the best lens is to use for this? What do you think the best production set design would look in this scene? If we're doing this thing where it's generating it all, you know, itself, why would I have to use anyone? I could just literally ask AI all these questions. But that's exactly the issue. And this is what Sean was saying, was that when I hire my production designer and my DOP and my director, and I bring them together and when we're all chatting and we're saying, actually, this is probably what we should do, and we all come together and we're like, right, okay, it works with the budget, it works with all the logistical sides of of everything, and then we're like, cool. So we go and we shoot it, but then actually, in the moment when we're about to say action, Sean goes, ooh, actually, can we change that thing in the corner? And our production designer goes, fuck you, but okay, I'll change it.
I often do this.
Or vice versa, our production designer goes, ooh, to the gaffer, could we the lighting doesn't quite. But, you know, all of that can only happen in the moment on set. And I don't care what people say, because AI cannot do that. And it will never be able to do that, because that is purely a human interaction. It's a human, and it's hard. I can't convey it in words because I don't think it can be. It's really, that's the difference.
I guess we'll start to get a better idea once the first AI movies start coming out and see how we feel when we watch them.
Well, that'll be fine.
Have you watched any yet?
No,
Are there any?
I
would never.
No. You would boycott.
I am hardcore. I don't want to see it.
So I
really.
I fundamentally believe that, like, you're training AI on a model that includes a lot of art that has been signposted for it. So you're saying this is popular, this is, as a result, going to get eyeballs, it's going to attract attention. So maintain making that kind of art. But at the same time, the kind of art that I certainly have like grown up on and what has enriched my taste is art that's a bit more alternative and punk. And I don't know if AI can be, you know, trained primarily on the films of Kiarostami or, you know, someone else who's not in the mainstream. But I don't think that it would naturally bring in those kind of biases that I would have against, say, popular art and towards something that tries to do something different. And as a result, how can it really reflect the zeitgeist of the time either? Like, in terms of the art we're making, could AI have made Adolescence, for example, in terms of can it respond to a problem within society that actually artists have wrestled with for quite a long time? And this one happened to, for whatever reason, kind of burst through.
Yeah, and I think we you know, on that point as well, it's, you look at something like Adolescence.
Yeah.
I mean, the reaction that it got, not just from the film community, but from our government, right? I think Keir Starmer brought it up like 5 or 6 times. So, and that was through the experiences of the people who wrote that film, right? or series, sorry, and Philip Barantini directing it, and Matt as the OP. You know, so there were, again, all of these people coming together to really show that story.
Sure.
And look, yes, to be honest, AI could do it. AI can render you a film that a lot of people will watch and say, that was pretty good. And they'll watch and say, that made me pretty sad, or that made me happy. And I'm not saying it can't, because that's naive for me to say that. It will be able to do that. Same thing with music. It will be able to write music, and you can have Ed Sheeran's voice sing it, and, you know, millions of people.
Or put yourself in the movie.
Millions of
like
people
you
love
said,
it. Yeah, or put yourself
like
in the
that
movie.
idea which you spoke about like almost live rendering
Yeah.
in 10 minutes. You
Yeah.
could be like, hey, put us four in.
Yeah, so
You
you'll
know,
be able
we're
to-
lovers, you're whatever, you're the
It's my kind of movie.
yeah, whatever, some kind of,
but, you know, you'll be able to do that, and I'm not saying that you won't. And that's the thing. It's like, and then everyone goes, and even the question we were saying, well, but can AI do kind of a more, you know, niche side of things? Yes, I'm sure it could if you asked it to. But that's not the argument. It's not, can AI do it? I know AI can. And I know we're going to be in a position where AI will be able to do it, and we can't deny that. But what we can do is we can accept that there is a difference between humans making it and AI
Sure.
making it. And the
No.
fact that we're having this conversation
mean,
right
like,
now is
yeah.
also really kind of crazy, right? Because 5 to 10 years ago, this wouldn't be a conversation.
yeah, it wouldn't even be a
It
threat.
wouldn't
It'd
even
be
be a
like,
threat. And that's why...
we were at this sort of Will Smith
Yeah. And that's why the industry...
eating the spaghetti
Yeah, and it's why-
terribly.
Exactly.
I actually really like that.
Yeah. And but that's why as well the industry is where it's at, because there's so much confusion, and it's this idea, you know, the films we're making, we're trying to get £1 or £2 million to make independent films, and we are really struggling to get the funding. And 10 years ago, no chance, but now actually there is a chance to get it, but we're struggling as well because so many producers in LA, where really still that is where a lot of the checks are just signed in the States, you know, they're all kind of looking at everyone as a number, as a risk. So they're looking at the director and they're going, okay, what's this director done? Oh, it's done this film that's made money. Okay, well, maybe it's less risky. Oh, the writer's also done this. And the actors have all done this. Okay, so as a package, that risk is not so bad. So yeah, we'll probably greenlight that. But if you come to them with like a new director and a new writer
And a new IP.
a new IP and a new idea, you know, they're going to go, right, but
That's risky.
the risk level is too high. And the industry's
Are they
always
right?
been...
Are they right?
Well,
though?
the argument is, like, yes, of course. I actually think it's...
From a
it's something-
commercial perspective, if you make like a sequel of a successful movie,
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't make money these days. Look at Jurassic World Rebirth.
No, yeah, that's... Look, after this,
Not always,
Google
yeah.
the top 10
Yeah.
like box office hits of the past year, and you will be
pull it up,
shocked.
David.
You will be shocked at how little money they've made.
Yeah.
And that is why it's had this kind of ripple effect to everyone. But the only kind of, you know, rainbow that's come out of this is the fact that indie cinema is becoming more of the norm. You look at the 3 Oscar kind of Best Picture films. Sorry, it was Anora, Conclave, and The Brutalist, and they were all technically in indie films.
Brutalist enhanced by AI, though, of course.
Enhanced by AI, but yeah, it was. But so, you know,
Foolishly.
but this is the thing.
Foolishly,
so,
why?
I mean, they made a really interesting film and then allowed this to color people's perspective of it.
yeah.
I think.
But did they say how it was enhanced by AI?
So I think this is the problem. They didn't ever disclose that. That was someone had found that in the heat of an Oscar race where everyone wanted to win, so it became this PR nightmare for them.
Right.
And I think how they used it
Because
is
it's like I said, there's so many different
legitimate in a
types of
way.
AI. So when you're saying like, I'm sure, even though you guys are anti-AI to replace the entire filmmaking process,
Oh, yeah.
you've probably used ChatGPT ever.
I have in my history.
Yeah, but that's kind of the argument I said at the start, was that, oh, of course AI will be used in filmmaking, because filmmaking is a business.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
of course it will be used. It will be
But
used
even to like
in-
sort of,
in-
if you've got a script,
yeah.
put it into AI,
No.
give me notes,
I have a friend who
feedback on it. And I've heard
I
some
think that's a
top
very
like
dangerous-
script writers have
Yeah.
said like the notes I got
Yeah.
back from ChatGPT
Oh.
were as good as anyone
I mean,
else.
but you look at novels and the publishing industry, and you look at you know, my father has worked in publishing for over 30 years,
Right.
and he is terrified of AI. And it's because I remember it was years ago when AI first started, and my cousin, like wrote something using AI, and it was before anyone really knew how good it would be. And he was like 15 at the time and couldn't write, and so he came to my dad with this kind of piece that he'd written. And my dad read it and went, "What the fuck? I was like, this is quite good, you know, it's very well written, yeah." And he said, "Yeah, it was AI," and we didn't know. And then from that, you know, it obviously got to where we are now, and it's continuing to grow. So yeah, I think, you know, just from my dad's perspective, as someone working in publishing, yeah, he's terrified of what it's going to do to that. But again, that's the kind of moral battle we have to face of, are we going to accept AI? We're going to have to, right? But it's, how is it going to be implemented, and where is it going to be implemented? Because yes, I can tell my team that I've used AI to adjust the top sheet, so the budget of the film slightly, and for it to do the maths on how much money we're saving in our tax rebate instead of having to pay an accountant. Yeah, sure. Fine. That, I think, is unavoidable. Yeah. Because no producer wouldn't do that, you know, from a fiscal point of view. But what's dangerous is, how far are we going to use that? You know, so are we then going to take it and literally go to AI, make the shot list? I mean, Sean and Sophia, our director, they're making the shot list right now. You could get AI to do it, save money on prep, you know? Yeah. So this is the thing, and this is the battle.
I mean, you still could get it to do it, and then you have to, you know, there has to be a human having the final say yes or no, right? So you could sort of generate it and then be like, no, change that.
I think a big part for me is like, so when I have used it, it's actually in the way that you've suggested, but in terms of like feeding it a script and saying, what do you think of this? But for me, that process happens way after I've made my own notes, because I don't want it to color my judgment.
Sure,
like, I want to read it
too easy. Yeah.
Well, it's not even easy. It's, for me, it's like it responds to different things. Like on page 2, I might notice a line and go, "Oh, that's really interesting." Yeah, and it will completely have missed that. Right. That's not part of its top sheet when it responds to me. And maybe it's getting the same input, but you know, if you want to see it that way, like I'm a machine as well. And my tastes and responses are way more important to me than ChatGPT. And same with critiques. Like my general feedback when someone is receiving a critique is like, take on what's useful to you. And I think that is probably the only way that I could personally use ChatGPT is taking from it what I already agree with, or I've already kind of established. Oh, it also thinks there's a problem in this scene.
Sure. I mean, is AI, and then that's the other question, right? It's how is AI going to affect other people, right? Because, you know, as filmmakers, our job is to make things for the viewer, right? When we're thinking about a scene or a specific shot, for example, we're thinking, ooh, but, you know, is someone going to realize that we've done this? Or is someone going to realize that we've changed that, you know? So
where are they
with AI?
So from a producer standpoint, it's going to be really interesting to see the people who have the power to make decisions, make those decisions on AI. Because it's not going to be me. It's not going to be people of my generation. It's going to be the 50 and 60-year-olds who have all the control and have all the money. And now, are they going to do what historically all the generations have done and fuck the younger generations? Maybe. You know, they might. And to be honest, you look at the film industry and all the generations have screwed us with streaming already, and they've screwed us with the kind of astronomical pay packages that people have been receiving. Like, script doctors making $300,000-$400,000 a week on certain films, you know. So
script doctors,
so someone who would come on board,
like ChatGPT, but human.
So essentially, you would have a established screenwriter, who would come on board to a big budget film
to rewrite something.
It's Avatar or whatever, and they say, well, we need to, the last 60 pages doesn't work. You need to come on board and fix it. And they all usually pay between $300,000 to $400,000 a week for the top script doctors, right? But this was kind of like everyone in the industry was making this much money. A mentor of mine said he would be in LA and his agent would arrive in a Maserati, his lawyer would have a Porsche, and his manager would have a Bentley, right? Everyone was making so much money. Right. And now we're in a place where the industry just isn't generating that type of money. So
is the total revenue down?
Is the total revenue?
Did you manage to pull up the last movies? Did you ever look at that?
Well, let's find original IP.
What's the total? What's the top one? Nizar. What's that?
It's a Chinese market.
Oh, really?
There you go. Minecraft movie, Lilo and Stitch, Mission Impossible.
But can we zoom in on the numbers?
How to
Like,
Train Your
just-
Dragon, Captain America.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going through for the
So what
people
you
listening.
could do- Okay.
Thunderbirds,
So-
Sinners,
Okay, so we move to the numbers.
Jurassic World Rebirth.
Okay, so here. Just move more to the. There we go. Okay. So this is what
The
they
top
made. What would
one's
be
making
interesting
1.8
is to see
billion.
if we could do a comparison to budget. Could we get their budgets as well? It might be too complicated. Because my argument can only really be once we see the budget is,
Yeah.
the budget can then dictate how
Okay.
much money
Let's go back to
the
us.
film's actually made.
Just really briefly, quickly, can you just swing onto our camera because I think the focus might have gone when Oli crossed. No, we're okay. And on the wide.
Okay.
Sorry, some live text
Live
support.
text. But
And cut.
But yeah, we will cut all of that. That's fine. But I do think, going back on the point of what you were asking about, has revenue gone down?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting point because viewership has gone up, and these streaming platforms are worth billions and billions of dollars. Now, are films making money? No. And that's the difference. Yeah, because the theatrical side of the industry is dead.
So what? People going to the
People aren't
cinema?
going to the cinema anymore,
Right.
and people are watching their films at home. And also, with the current state of the world, like, how can someone justify spending 20 quid to go to the cinema when they're already spending £30 a month on streaming platforms?
Yeah.
So-
Because you have to
More,
have
'cause
seven
you're
or eight.
multiple,
Yeah, you have to have 7 or 8. And so it's like we were talking about the cost of living in London and New York. And
Yeah.
if you're like, even on a decent salary in New York, like $20 to go to the cinema to watch a film that you can watch on a streaming platform in like a couple months,
Yeah.
it's like a justification that used to just not be
And
there.
they often come out at the same time these days as well.
Yeah, I mean,
kind
they try.
of.
They try.
They try to
and-
charge
yeah.
like Apple charges like
premium.
currently in cinema, and they charge a cinema
Well,
price.
what
But
Apple do, which is interesting, is they know they're losing money on the theatrical release, so they just do it for the marketing purposes. So Apple will literally release a film and put it in the cinemas and spend a boatload of money doing that just to get the marketing
What?
benefits from it.
Just what of the
Yeah.
Apple name
So
everywhere.
just know, so it's an Apple film that's a theatrical release. So everyone goes, oh, I remember when that was in cinema, and now it's on the Apple platform. They go, oh, and we're going to watch it.
Yeah, so that has
yeah.
a prescribed
Yeah.
level of premiumness.
Okay,
But they
so
know
the
they're not
cinema
making-
is the
yeah.
advert for the streaming.
And they know they're not making. They know they're not
It's
making
nuts.
money on the theatrical side because the theatrical side of the business is.
So do you think
completely
the cinemas are gonna die? Like all of
And they're
them.
already
They're
been
already
dying.
pretty much
Like
dead.
Odeon,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, but like it's now again. I think cinemas are going to become a niche. It's going to be
Yeah.
like they're going to be like indie cinemas that are still around.
Yeah, I mean, revivalist cinemas in London, especially. There's so many really beautiful
Amazing
old cinemas.
and in New
And
York, like
You have to be a member to go to them.
yeah.
Right.
But
Picture House. It's like
I mean,
the-
yeah, I mean
the-
that's kind of
yeah,
like
which is
I feel like that
fun.
must be dying a death now again. But
yeah.
they have some kind of diversification that they have to bring.
Mm.
Years ago, it was like every man. They became
Yeah.
a big thing because you could order drinks to your seat,
Yeah,
and it
pizza.
was basically a restaurant but with a screen in it.
Yeah.
And then
Is
you
it
have
like
the
a-
revivalists, so it's
But
going
that
in both
costs you,
ways,
What, like 20 quid?
if not more.
If not
Like
more. So that
And
was
there's
the-
probably like next gen version of cinema. Like I don't know, what's the next version? Is it like with VR
This.
or? Yeah.
yeah, cut to the
watching
wide.
Watching at home.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's that like watching it on your laptop or watching it on your phone.
So
I
what
had
happened to all the 4D ideas?
Well,
That
I mean,
never really
that
took. Or
died
that was a
very
bit
quick.
gimmicky.
That's went where AI should
yeah,
go.
yeah. But that's the thing, and you have this exactly. But you had these ideas like 3D and all that jazz, and it didn't work. And I think
fully immersive
what's-
haptic suits
yeah.
or something.
Yeah, I
Well, yeah.
remember.
I mean,
Yeah,
but what's
yeah.
terrifying?
Still looking forward to that.
Yeah. But what's terrifying, I think, is I was in a development meeting with a big US studio, and they were talking all about viewer retention, but also about the what's the generation under Gen Z?
The
Alpha?
millennials? No, alpha.
No.
Oh, I don't know. Sorry.
Anyway,
I don't,
whatever
don't
the
keep track.
people born
The TikTok guys
the
or
TikTok
below.
generation. Anyway, they they're like retention to screen is like nothing because they've grown up watching reels on Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and all of that.
Yeah.
So when you sit them down to watch a 2-hour movie, they're like fidgety the whole time. They can't do it.
Yeah.
And so Netflix and some of these, I just screwed up by saying the big studio. But these big studios that are looking into this are creating films that are designed. So they're designed so that you can be watching the movie, you can look away for 10 minutes, you'll look back up, and you won't have like lost the plot or the narrative of the film.
Because they're constantly repeating those plot points.
Right.
Which to me feels like being fed gruel. I'm watching it and being told the same information 1,000 times.
Yeah, it's interesting because even they're saying there's studies about these cartoons that are targeted at kids on Netflix and stuff, and they like, what's it called? What's that one? Lolo Melon or something? What's that one?
Lulumelon.
Lulumelon or something that, and it's just like bright
Coco
colors.
Melon.
Sorry.
It's a clothing brand.
Yeah.
All right, boys.
Okay. Obviously out of the loop.
And our sponsor.
Yeah. And they apparently just have like quick cuts, bright colors, and they've shown that it does something to the kids' brains.
Yeah.
I mean,
but that's the thing. And so I think with filmmaking, it's adapting to that as well, and on a larger scale, because I think, yes, indie cinema, and it's like why we did a horror film. We made a horror film because we realized that to then go and sell that film and get funding for a feature, horror is the genre to be doing right now, because you have that, because you have a cult following who are always going to go to
people that like
be in a big dark room and get scared.
Cinephiles.
But it's kind of like it's how you treat cinemas then. To get it back to this theatrical distribution thing, it's like cinemas, I think, should be treated not as a place to sell popcorn, but almost like a church. Like you go there in reverence and you want to see something that moves you. Yeah. When we met up last week, I'd just been to see 28 Years Later. Oh, yeah. And I was so impressed by it.
Really?
Shot on iPhone.
Yeah.
Here we go.
With a £100,000 rig.
Shot on an iPhone, surrounded by everything to make it look like it does. And also like shot incredibly, and that doesn't make it an easy feat. Anthony Dodmantle is a genius and has been since the day he picked up a camera. Yeah. But I think that kind of filmmaking, even though it is IP, it was a really interesting film. I was so moved by it. And it was me and 3 old guys sitting in the cinema, and it's like empty cinema.
You see that?
But we did treat it like church. We were all quiet. We were all paying attention, watching the film.
Yeah. But you're a rare breed. Right?
Well,
so this is the other thing.
Worse has been said about me.
But most people aren't going to do that. And most people, if they have 20 quid, are going to want to go to the pub, or they're going to want to spend 20 quid on whatever, but it's not going to watch movies anymore. And
especially all this next generation, like you're saying. Yeah. It's like the culture's changed.
The TikTok generation. I'm sure there will be movies that are like real based, where like you are able to watch a film through
vertical dramas effectively.
Yeah, it's like, so it is changing, and I think we have had this kind of quite depressing past 30 minutes of discussing AI and all that jazz, but I do think that regardless, there's always been change in the creative fields, and I'm like so naive to be even like trying to explain this or say this, but I will. And that is that I feel like, shit's always been changing. You look at like,
it's always been
you look at like theater, you look at like, art, film, music, everything's constantly been changing. You look at like things like the opera. Right?
We were talking about this earlier.
How many people actually, first of all, can afford to go to the opera? Second of all, still go to the opera. But it's still there. We still talk about it. It's still very much an industry in the creative field. So film's not just going to disappear. It's not going to go away. Is it maybe going to become more like an opera, where you go to the cinema and it's going to be a bigger deal, and there are going to be less human-made films out there, but you really need to appreciate them when they are? Maybe, yes.
Yeah.
That might
and
be
maybe
the place
that will increase the sort of value for an authentic performance that is like even more human, that an AI, just couldn't reproduce. Then it kind of forces people to like really dig deep on that side, potentially. And then if people are starved of that and they're so looking at like AI just,
everywhere
madness, then, going back to some, maybe a simple, powerful performance might be valued, maybe.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I think that's the more likely shift that AI delivers, is a kind of cultural shift towards something more cinema, if that exists. Like I did when I was doing my master's, we, had to do a written dissertation, which I initially was like, oh God. But then I got thinking about the attention economy, about this idea that films have to be TikTokified. And I'm very upset about that. Like, I don't like watching those films. And so for me, part of that study was like, oh, okay, what's the opposite of that? Like, can we learn something from the complete counter opinion?
Yeah.
And I think we can. We look at slow cinema, like, depending on your taste, like, it's not for everyone. But there was a study done into slow cinema about tracking eyeball movements while people watch these really repetitive slow films, and people don't look away. And when they're watching something that isn't moving, for some reason they're captured by it. So there are lessons to find from different areas.
I mean,
basically.
wouldn't you find, like, if you watch an old movie now, does it feel like slow?
It's so fun. I watched
watch it,
Casablanca a few weeks ago, and I was captured.
Yeah.
I thought the camera moved way more. The performances are. It's an incredible film. I mean, it's an obvious incredible film, but I was expecting to be
this is too slow, because you get used to faster cuts
But what they do is they move the camera and they compose in depth, and so you have like a really incredible romantic moment, and the camera's not afraid to go right into Humphrey Bogart's face, and you're there like, no one's brave enough to do this anymore.
But I think even like cinema, like, I mean, when cinema started, there wasn't sound, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't color, there wasn't sound, and people appreciated it. People still, loved it. Loved it, and it really is what started, the journey. And I mean, Christopher Nolan, I think, was it when he won Oppenheimer, said, "Cinema's been around for 100 years." So I'm very intrigued to see where the next 100 takes us. You look at all other kind of forms of art, and they've been around far longer, apart from like bloody TikTok and stuff like that. But then that's also the argument. When we are all going to die, and the generations below us will have been born into a world of AI.
Yeah,
and they will have been born into a world of TikTok, and that's just going to be the norm to them. So it's like I try and explain to my grandparents the films I make, and sometimes they don't understand it. Like this idea of like a proof of concept and a short film.
Yeah.
Like my grandfather, who is 85 and is very set on his ways, and he's not going to change. Right? Just can't really understand why I would do a proof of concept or a short film, right? Because he sees cinema really as only one true form, one true way of making cinema.
Right.
But that's obviously not true, and there are so many different ways of doing it. And you were talking about stop motion or like all these different elements, right? And you look at like series and how TV's really becoming so big and being able to, some of the best shit to come out in our industry has been from TV. So I think, it really is. There's no.
Is there more opportunity there then? Like, would you guys shift to TV as well?
TV's just TV,
because TV's quite cinematic. A lot of it these days as well.
There's been such a shift in the last 15 years towards
TV. Used to be shat on. So it used to be that like if you were
HBO
film, you were film, and then if you were TV, you were TV. It's like agents would have like TV departments and film departments, and the film department was always on top of the TV department, right?
Sure.
But now it's the same, and you only have a few actors. I think like Tom Cruise has come out and said, I'm going to be the last movie star, right? Because he's never going to do.
Because all the movie stars cross over to
because they
TV.
have to, but they also appreciate that it's a different form of art, of media. It's like Jason Isaacs, who you've worked with, and he was
good mate of mine,
and he was in White Lotus season 3, and he was also
very good
Draco Malfoy's father in Harry Potter, and
Lucius Malfoy.
Lucius Malfoy.
For all the Potterheads out there.
Draco. Who was Draco?
His son.
His son. Oh shit. Sorry. Anyway, and so, but he was talking on a podcast as well about kind of the way he's seen the industry change, and he was discussing how TV now has really become something that is arguably as important as cinema.
Because if you think about what's happened, you're calling it TV, but it's just on streaming platforms. Really, like, I can't remember last time I watched TV in terms of like what BBC, ITV, Channel 4. I actually in my house don't even have TVs that lock into those. I just use Apple TV everywhere that has the apps. Yes, I have the BBC app and stuff, but it's not like before when it was just people would just turn on TV and see what's on. I don't think many people do that anymore. No. So you're going into the streaming platforms to choose a
Yeah.
TV program. So it is like almost a new form of TV. It isn't, you know.
Well, you look at some of the most successful, things that come out of our industry, and that's Friends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's TV. Yeah,
Scrape
that's
the
cool.
bottom of the barrel,
But look at sitcom.
Oh yeah.
And they're still making $20 million.
I mean, you could argue a good sitcom would do really well today.
Yeah. And
Or
so
The
there
Office. Is The Office
the
still
Office,
doing well?
they're bringing that back. So there is potential for
Nothing
all
new.
of this change, and I
Yeah.
think
There's nothing new under the sun.
no, but I think
Everything's a remix.
and
yeah.
that's the other. That's going back to the point of this fear of the business side.
Of
right? It's
change,
this-
'cause there is
not necessarily
change.
of change, but this fear of it not working. That I think the industry went through a period of really experimenting and trying this and that, and it wasn't working. And suddenly people were like, "Oh wait, we weren't making any money." And we were losing money, and we're continuing to lose money. And so now the industry is like, right, well, we need to find a model that works where it can organically grow and the business can become profitable again. Because you look at LA, and some of those studios are ghost towns. Nothing's getting made there. Like, so it's
They've got to pivot or adjust somehow to like move with the times, you know.
I think the shift has to come from within, as it did in the 70s with like
Yeah.
New Hollywood. It just became, there's these really interesting people who've never made films before, and they've got voices, and those voices they're anti-establishment, and they're not, yeah, we're here, and they're not willing to kind of bow down to those expectations and tropes that are placed on them from larger studios. And I think you see mini revolutions, you see rise of something like A24, although I think ultimately
What's A24? Sorry.
it's a good question. They started out more like a distribution house, and it's now a bit more of a production house.
Do you know Neon
What the?
production house?
No, sorry.
The-
It's kind of a new wave of production companies
Yeah.
that are producing films that have, I guess, an independent flavor.
yeah, I think
Or that's where they've made their money.
Their mark and their money,
They
yeah.
started. Well, A24 started out with Moonlight. I don't know if you watched it.
Oscar
It came
winner.
out, in 2016.
One.
Yeah, and it's what beat La La Land. Remember when the Oscars and they
Oh,
got
yeah.
confused, right? And so, I mean, A24 really, went against the kind of traditional
grain,
mold, I
yeah.
guess. But also, you look at what they're making and have made, and you wouldn't think it was against the mold because it was so good. You would think, well, surely that was just how it should be. You know, that like now people are using.
So what did they do that was
A24.
so against the grain or whatever?
In
Breaking the
championing
mold.
like individual voices.
Yeah.
A lot of a new breed of directors would have had their
Okay.
films go through A24.
Sean Baker was A24.
I think that
was it?
maybe it's only Honora was no,
Honora was
Florida
Neon.
Project was
Florida Project was
yeah,
it.
you're
So
right.
they took more of a
Right.
chance.
Yeah,
on
they went for
keeping
like
it
the
right.
kind of like, and
It's
they.
more risk.
I think what they did was they, in America especially, they accepted that indie cinema was what was coming, and they took a gamble and it paid off.
I mean, a lot of good horrors. as
And
well.
yeah, but they were also like had an indie feel to them.
Yeah.
So they kind of went against the traditional, $40-50 million movie, and they made these like sub $10 million films that did really, really well, and they were like just really good scripts. Because at the end of the day, regardless of what you're going to say, it all starts with a bloody script.
Yeah.
With an
right?
idea.
And if,
Yeah.
That's
if
yeah.
the script is good and your producer's all right.
Yeah, but that's kind
And
of
you've
the
got
point that I was
everything
trying
together,
to, yeah, that's
the
kind of the
film
point I was
should
trying to
be-
make earlier.
yeah.
Like, if the human makes the script in the first place, even if he then puts it through AI, it's still the origin is coming from a human. You know what I mean? Or the main, or the story, which is what movies are, right? It's that you're telling stories, right? So if AI makes a story, I don't know how that would come out. Like, if you ask ChatGPT to tell you a joke, they're terrible.
Yeah, exactly right.
It
And
doesn't know how
that's
to.
like the most
It doesn't
basic
get it, and no matter
story
how
in the
much
world.
joke you give,
Yeah.
you feed
Well,
into it.
No, it has to be really funny.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But it's,
No, I said a funny joke.
it's terrible now.
Yeah.
I think the thing that interests me about AI, and don't punch me, is that it learns every individual that uses the platform. So
Sure.
it learns off you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
It's like,
You're feeding
like
your data
Sean was
in,
saying, like,
yeah.
it didn't. I wrote a note and it didn't see that note. But if you were to use it every day with your work and explain what
train
you're
it,
doing and you
yeah.
train it, I think actually then probably it would be able to do that. So again, I'm not like I'm not an idiot. I know AI is as intelligent as anything, and it's going to. It's insane. We can't even comprehend what it's going to be able to do. And like, you can look at the benefits of AI. Like, you look at the advancements we're probably going to make in the like medical field, right? Like, like it's gonna be crazy.
Diagnosis.
And I think already now, like, AI can. What was it, like 90% diagnosis, and like either the top diagnosticians are like 60 or 70% or whatever. So, and that's now. So yes, of course, it's going to be insane what happens, and film is definitely going to be able to do things that we can't even predict now.
Sure, yeah.
But I still don't think that that's justification for using it, because I still think that everything that we do, to make a film, to take that script and put it on the screen, is just, there are so many elements to it that just can't.
But if you broke down those
AI.
elements and you sort of turned each of those elements into an AI agent, and you trained with the best whatever textbooks and fed every single whatever autobiography of every DOP into that, and all the tips and tricks into it, then each one becomes like a part of the whole process.
You might end up with an extremely sterile product.
Right.
Because
it all evens out in the end or something.
At some stage, it's also like it can't, there's contradictory ideas in there.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's very good at finding nuance between contradictions, between saying this is black and this is white. It might find a kind of version of grey, but it won't necessarily be interesting. It won't be its own thing.
It'll just all mix together and
it'll be like
brown
a
mud.
muddy brown tint,
Yeah.
I also think though there's something really key to understanding all of this, is like the function of art. And I think art, at its core, at least for me, there's part of it that is about critiquing what is going on, like reflecting on your own society, on your own role within that, your own fears and the place you are in your life. And I don't think that ChatGPT can do that in the same way. I've noticed since having a child, like my interest in scripts that explore that side of life has grown exponentially.
Sure, yeah.
I can't,
as a parent,
I can't connect with that in any other way. Like, I'm changing, and I don't know in what ways I'm changing. So as an artist, that becomes a really interesting iterative process.
Sure.
That you're not feeding any prompt to, because it's all
happening to you.
It's insular in some way. But I also think, on the point of AI and who's going to watch it and all the rest, like, the way I would compare it is like, it's about your appetite. My appetite for AI is very low. I see AI like a Big Mac. Yeah. Like, it's interesting from afar. I can understand that that's in some way going to taste all right, maybe nostalgic somehow. But I know it's bad for me. I know that I shouldn't have too many Big Macs. At least at this stage, it doesn't. It's not fine dining.
And again, I think my fear though is that we can view it like that from that lens, but you might not, and
sure.
And the majority of the world might not, and you think of.
Everyone likes McDonald's, right?
Sometimes I think of something like the MPC, right, in music. What was it? It was a sampler, right? It was taking other people's already made music and doing something new and interesting with it, and that created whole new genres of hip hop and everything. But there was a lot of backlash against that kind of stuff as well. But then it created new art as well. So I think you need to always, remember that humans are going to be able to use these tools in interesting ways, and your source material which you feed into it, and that's also, the choices are infinite and will come from you too. So you could, I think, create art still, take your own photos, make your own stuff, do stuff, AI might enhance it, but I think it can work together and still make incredible art. I'm just thinking of just little examples. Like, one thing, let's say you've shot everything, now it's in edit, and then the editor's like, damn, we needed like a couple more seconds of that shot. You can already in Adobe now just be like, extend shot, and just get the guy walking another couple of steps or something. You're still all the same people who were involved in the movie, the set designer, the makeup, the actor, everyone's there, but you just helped yourself a little bit with a couple more seconds, or that's just one example. But I think there will be like.
But then I think there's an argument to that, which is if you did get it wrong. So let's say Sean fucked up and we
Came out of focus.
Been known to happen.
and we cut too soon. We do get into the edit, and we realize that actually that scene didn't quite go out as planned.
Yeah.
But that's the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Then that's the
That
whole
creates something new.
creative side of things, right? Where suddenly we're in the edit and the shot list didn't go to plan, and we're like, all right, well now it's in the hands of our editor and our team.
He has to
who we
work it
hired
out.
there, and they
Yeah.
need to figure it out.
Do
And
more
the
with
director,
less.
The director
Yeah.
needs to come in and
Yeah.
on board and be like, all right, well then we need to do this. And again, it creates something that wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily planned, but that's
The
the whole point of
accidents.
film. Is that
Yeah.
sometimes the accidents.
Yeah.
are
How you work around the
yeah, and
accidents
it's a very
can create something
cliched way
new.
of looking at it, but I
Happy
do think
accident.
that
Happy
is just.
accident.
Yeah.
I do think that's really a part of filmmaking, and it's never going to go to plan. No film ever goes perfectly to plan. Like,
Yeah.
there's
It
always
shouldn't.
going to be something that pops up.
Yeah,
Well,
we bake
yeah.
in these imperfections. Like
Yeah.
that is the beauty of it, is turning up on set and going,
Yeah.
well, we planned to look that way, but it looks great over
And
there.
to
Why
be
don't we
honest,
just turn around?
Some of the films that you watch that feel sterile and not very exciting and boring probably are the films that went exactly to plan,
Yeah.
right? Or probably the
Right.
films that had $50 million and they had 25 assistants to make sure
Ma-
that
made by
every single
committee.
second, yeah. And you know, that sometimes there's an
Yeah.
irony there, right?
I
That
think when it's too like these big budget, formulaic Hollywood happy ending movies, you get to the end of it and you're like, okay, like
I get it.
yeah, I knew that was gonna all work out, and like
yeah.
it's almost like very predictable characters and obvious baddies, and the baddies obviously not gonna win in the end. It's like
And that's AI.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
yeah.
in my
Or
head,
that's what it represents,
That's
I
what
think.
it
Yeah.
represents. And so, you know, really, yeah, I think that is the argument there. But again, it's really hard for me to say that like film is going to stay as it was. It's not. It's already
No.
changing.
yeah.
And
But I think like
I
you,
think
you've got to
it's
try and get ahead
yeah,
of it.
you
If
have
you
to get
guys are
ahead
in
of
the
it.
industry,
and I think as
you
long
know,
as we're, I mean,
play
we-
with the tools, see
we
which
are,
ones.
but we're also
yeah.
sticking to our guns and doing what we know we can do well.
Sure.
Right? We know that we can, if the script's good,
Yeah.
we can get our heads together and we can get an amazing team around us and we can make something fucking good.
Mm.
We know we can do that, and so
Yeah.
that's what we're doing. And so far, it's going all right,
Right.
right? And so we're hoping that it continues to go all right. But again,
Sure.
some of these things are out of our hands, out of our
Yeah.
control.
I
All we can
agree
do
with
as filmmakers, I think, is just to continue to do what we can.
I agree with your point. There's something about knowing
Mm.
what those tools do and how
Yeah.
you can utilize them. And I do think if you're going to see them come into your industry, then you should be someone who can help mold how they
Yeah.
enter
Mm.
your industry.
Yeah.
But part of me is just so nullified by the idea of a non-human component. And I think
Mm.
that
But by the way, like people say non-human, but it's based on all humans, right?
Well,
That's what it's trained on.
It's
Like,
based on products of humans, right?
Yeah.
So like that film that it tries to iterate on was made by, 60 or 70 people,
Mm-hmm.
but AI doesn't know what was going on in their heads and their hearts at the time. If they were having a
Sure.
bad day that day.
They had a really awful sandwich and they were feeling like shit.
Yeah, lunch was
Yeah,
awful and they
or
had
like-
diarrhea when they were doing
Yeah,
that
or their
scene. like-
girlfriend broke up with them the day before, or their mother died a week before, or
Yeah.
or they got proposed the day after, or they're going to propose, or they got like there are.
I think that
so
all
many
feeds into
things
that process and it feeds into your taste.
That is going on a film set, right? Because you've got 70 people. There's no way that those 70 people's lives are just perfect and everything's great and everything's fine, right? But that's what's put into the performances. That's what's put into the team, into everything, and
that adds to the richness.
and adds to the
and,
richness. And of course,
some
anyone who's
unquantifiable.
yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
I
Like
think-
something like Apocalypse Now, I think is always a great example in
Yeah.
these cases. Like literal
actually, yeah.
war to
Yeah.
make a film like that. Everyone is high as anything on that
Yeah.
film, trying to reflect what it's like to be in the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Maybe ChatGPT could do a version of that. I don't want to see it. I want to see the one where Coppola was off his
Yeah.
tits the whole time.
Yeah.
Like that's way more interesting to
Right.
me.
And I think it will always be more interesting. And I think that people who do decide that, when I say people, the people in our industry who do decide that AI is the way to go just because fiscally it makes so much more sense.
mm,
What they're doing is they are, yes, you could say yes, they're taking jobs away from all of these people and they're going to be ruining But you know what? That happens with change. That happens with technology.
Yeah.
Look at like the internet and how many jobs have been like destroyed on the back of that, and Amazon and all that jazz. So like that stuff you can't be too emotionally attached to.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, like,
and you don't want to be Blockbuster's video.
No, but like,
hanging on,
but like
you
Sean
know?
was saying, I think it's about, you know, you can position yourself in a place to be prepared for that change.
Yeah.
But for me anyway, until it's kind of like there's no option, I'm going to keep doing what I can do.
Sure.
And what I'm doing and what I know I can do. And until then, and look, it might be the fact that it never changes enough, so we are able to continue doing what we want to do. But I think that the competition is going to become even more fierce, right? Because suddenly it's going to be like, right, well, the filmmakers who are getting their chance, it's going to become even smaller, and it's already so small. So it's going to be a fraction of what a fraction
to do it the
is.
traditional way.
Yeah, to make a movie. You know?
Because the barrier to people making
the
content,
barrier to entry was already so difficult, and now with AI and the fact that people want to just use the same fucking everyone, right?
Same
Because
tropes,
same everything.
same
That,
voice.
yes, that when you do get the chance to have a platform that people are going to be able to watch, it's going to be, you know, far more difficult. So I'm really intrigued to see what that does to the industry as well, and what comes out of that pressure as well.
What they react with.
Yeah.
To like,
I think you already have a media landscape where so much content, TV, film, etc., is like stratified across all of these different streamers or in the theater, whatever it might be. And actually, what stands out is the good stuff, the quality stuff. And most of what that's defined by, rightly or wrongly, is like awards and recognition. Yeah. So the fact you mentioned earlier, the amount of independent cinema at the Oscars, like that's an insane, like if that had happened 10, 15 years ago, we'd be like, what? That's an incredible win for this industry. Sure. All of these films being made on no money, obviously being marketed to high heaven. That is incredible for us. So it could go one of two ways. You could have more AI infused and enhanced content, but you could also then have people going, well, let's sneak 5 million and make some really interesting film about a stripper in New York. Like, and it might go and win an Oscar. And sorry. That's just a pitch I have. But I do think as a result, like my ideal career has always been to be in that indie cinema space. And for me, it's just a more interesting space. But if the future is that AI is going to take over to that degree, go wild. I don't watch any of that anyway. I watch the stuff that really interests me.
That's more independent.
That has more to say.
Well, I think people find each other. I mean, like, it's very romantic, find each other. But I think, you know, like Sean and I have very similar views in that sense. And so, you know, obviously when we started working together, I feel like we were able to, obviously we both feel like we can do our jobs to a certain level, which is why we continue to work together. But also, I think just from the way we view the industry, I think it's very similar. And so you're going to have a situation where actually the industry is already such a small world in the sense everyone knows everyone, but you're going to have a place where the kind of anti-AI filmmakers are going to really come together.
Yeah.
And you're going to maybe have everyone else. Who knows? Again, but right now, Sean and I are working together, and we've got a good group of people around us. So we're hoping this film we're shooting next month is going to, you know, enable what we've just discussed, people to watch it and feel something different and feel like an escape of their reality. And I think we want to continue doing that. Yeah,
and that's what's really interesting about movies is you kind of all come together, work on a project, and then you all disperse, and then you kind of come back again. Yeah, then you go back to the guys that you liked working with, right? And then you're like, and then you get some kind of core team that is always there. But
it's a super high intensity experience as well.
Well, I guess, you know, you've worked with producers and filmmakers you really don't like.
I mean, it's fair to say. I mean, you don't get on with everyone. Because I think it's a bit like a relationship. You have to share some values, and I think that's more important.
And if you enjoy working with somebody, that's like gold to like hold on to them.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes look, you get someone extremely competent. Like, I don't mind working with people who are good at their job, but it's even better if that person's good at their job, and we kind of see the world in a similar way.
Yeah. Sure,
we can navigate things together, and also I know where they're coming from. Like for me, it's two things. Is like, I want to make the best film possible. I don't mind if that's the director's film, the producer's film, the writer's film, my film. And I want it to be a meritocracy. I want those ideas to come in and for us to decide as a team that...
You don't want it to be.
No, I do want it to be.
You do want it. Yeah,
I want the best ideas to the cream
it's not
to rise
like
to the
ego,
top.
Like,
and I have to remove my ego from that. But
we all do.
a producer needs to remove their ego from it as well. And likewise with a director and a writer. And that's an incredible process to be a part of when it goes right.
And that's why, to your point, when filmmakers work together, they become like a family, and then they disperse. But the ones who, feel like they have that connection will usually come back.
They get invited together again, not the dicks who pissed everyone off on stage.
You can have lovely people who are shit at their job.
Yeah.
As well.
Or just don't get it.
Or just don't get it.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's really, what we're trying to do. And I think we've got a plan for hopefully that will last for a few years and make some shit that,
Sure. Just to finish off, I thought it'd be good to talk about some of the finances you were talking about how much the budget is and how much it has to make to be in profit and why.
So kind of the traditional template is if you make a film for $1 million, the film needs to make 3. So, you go up, you make 5, and it needs to make 15, and, 20, 60.
So you're going to get 3x revenue to cost to reach break even?
Yes, to break even. So I'm not going to go into exactly why that's the case, but it's because you make a film for £10 million. You then need to spend, 10 to 15 million on the marketing.
Wow. So as much on the marketing as the movie itself.
Well, like Apple renting out theatrical release for some of their things as an advert.
I mean, and there are percentages
it comes at a big cost.
Because it feels
premium.
The fact that it's in some big Leicester Square cinema.
You walk past Leicester Square and it's like, oh my goodness. Disclaimer.
Yeah.
But also, you think about when you actually go and watch a film at the cinema, not that £10 is not going to the filmmaker.
It's going to the cinema.
50% of that's going to the cinema, and then you're having to pay back everyone else. So there are so many costs to making a film that the model that is used is you times it by 3, and anything above that is profit. So if the viewers want to have watched a film and it's a $20 million budget, just know that if they didn't make 60 million or more in the box office, they most likely have lost money.
Right.
So you just times it by 3, and any money on top is green. But if they haven't made any money on top of that, they've lost money. And again, that is why it's such a tough industry to make money. And that's why when the industry is in a state of unknown and the climate that it's in, things are going to not do so well.
Okay, well,
hopefully we're going to change that.
To get back in the cinema. Keep going to the cinema, guys.
Go watch films,
support
guys.
movies.
I think treat the cinema like church. Like I think, you just need to go and do it
every Sunday.
Just go and bow your head at the altar of good films. The other thing though is support good films. Like if something really moves you, buy the Blu-ray. Like 40 quid, whatever it is, that you'll help that long tail.
Are they still selling Blu-rays?
They are, yeah. I mean, this is another side of it, not to go in deep on something else, but you have like distributors who are kind of only targeting that. So you've got like the Criterion Collection, which their whole mantra is let's release really good old films and, add all the bells and whistles to them. So people can have it as a collector's item, a bit like vinyl, in a way.
Yeah,
and I mean,
the resurgence as
that's
well.
all I have at home is like old Criterion Collection Blu-rays or really bad DVDs of films that I love and that I can't put down. And I think you have to support that because also if you buy it on Netflix, Prime, whatever it is, like if that portal was to go away, even though you've bought it for life, you lose access to that. And it's really important that we have physical media and we can archive that material in some way.
Yeah, it's a shame that you can't download and save all your purchases on a hard drive or something.
Well, I mean, there's nefarious ways of doing it.
Okay.
But you shouldn't. You shouldn't do that. Support your filmmakers.
Support movies.
Support your filmmakers and go watch our movie.
Okay. All right. I think that's a good...
Maybe we'll do a podcast once the film's out and we'll either be crying or celebrating.
Do a live
and that's
watch
the
along.
beauty of filmmaking, right? Is that you never know.
It's a bit of a gamble.
So,
right.
Great.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That was nice.
Now.
Okay. Get back to work. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Darius.
Cheers, man.
See you soon.
See you.